My name is Lin Hao, and I live in a broken slum at the bottom of Neon City. The sky here is always gray, and is strictly obscured by high-profile billboards and holographic projections. The air was filled with the smell of sewers and the smell of burnt wires. There were broken seats and empty eyes on the streets. Every day when I open my eyes, my first thought is not how to survive, but how to avoid being raped by the deadly ads in my brain. Lin Hao. Come and try the latest ultimate energy drink. Just $9.98. Vancouver will instantly improve your mental power and make you invincible in the virtual world. A sweet voice of a woman who makes people goosebumps exploded directly in my brain, accompanied by 5 colors of glare, as if someone was diamonding in my brain with an electric dick. I gritted my teeth, slapped my brain hard, and tried to rush out the ghost thing, but it was useless. These implantable ads are directly connected to my neural system. Unless you have money to go to the black market to remove the implanted chip, you can only endure it. A ghost who doesn't know where the next one is. Where does it come from? Close your mouth. I won't drink it. I growled and kicked a broken iron can on the foot. The can sting and rolled into the depths of the alley. A man selling worn-out parts next to me glanced at me, slammed his head, muttering, "Another one was raped by an advertisement." I ignored him and walked through the dirty streets with my head down. The advertisements in my brain were still changing, from energy drinks to virtual skin bags, to some supreme love simulator, and it changed every few seconds, as if someone was holding a remote control and pressing it in my brain. I forced myself not to listen, stared at the way down my feet, and focused on the only task today: to go to the garbage dump to pick up some of the waste products I could sell, and change a few virtual coins to fill my stomach. Life in a slum is so simple and unsatisfactory. You want to die of a dying life and find some work to enter the virtual world, but after entering the virtual world, you will still be greeted with incomplete advertisements. These ads are not just to people, they will directly affect your behavior. I heard that someone spent all his money and bought a bunch of useless virtual props because of the advertisement and his brainwashing, and finally jumped off the building. Lin Hao. What are you still hiding? The Extreme Speed Car Pack is a limited time offer. Now I buy and get a free virtual pet. I regret it after all. The woman's voice came again, and her language became more anxious, as if she was afraid that I would run away. I'll tell you again. I punched my wall next to me with anger, and the back of my hand immediately broke my skin, making me so painful that I was so excited. But this is not the worst. The worst thing is that the advertising system in my brain seemed to feel my anger. Limache changed into a more harsh male voice. The anger cannot solve the problem. Try our silent meditation set to make you calm for a moment, only $599 VAT. I almost vomited blood. This is the reality of Neon City, and high technology will not allow you to keep making fire. Every second, your brain is dominated by these garbage advertisements, and the one who controls everything is the high-ranking advertising overlord Zhang Batian. I heard that this guy is the actual controller of the virtual world, with an unnumbered digital army under his command, and is responsible for squeezing these bottom-level people. I even want to punch him when I dreamed, but in fact, I can't even enter the advanced areas of the world. Walking to the garbage dump, I put on my old gloves and started rummaging for something worthwhile. This is the Tibet of the slums. Every day, people throw away damaged electronic equipment, and occasionally get parts that can be repaired and sell them to the black market for a small amount of money. I flipped through for a long time and found only a few damaged motherboards and a broken data line. Just as I was about to prepare for the widow, my fingers suddenly touched something hard. I looked down and saw that it was a small black chip with scratches on the surface and a block missing from the corner, which looked like a waste product that was thrown away. But for some reason, I suddenly felt a strange feeling in my heart, as if this thing was calling me. I hesitated for a moment and still stuffed it into my pocket. After all, this kind of destruction may be able to be exchanged for several dollars. Lin Hao. What have you been holding? A crisp sound came from behind. When I looked back, it was Xiaoya. She is my childhood sweetheart who grew up with me, and she is also the only genius in this slum who understands technology. She was wearing a ragged hoodie, with a little oil on her face, and holding a small modified welding gun in her hand. She walked towards me with a smile. "It's nothing, a bunch of broken pieces." I listened to my shoulders and took out the chip from my pocket and showed it to her. "Look at how much money this thing is worth." Xiaoya took the chip and sniffed her eyebrows for a few seconds, then her eyes suddenly lit up. "This is not ordinary garbage, this is an old cracked chip. Although it is bad, if it can be repaired, it may be able to hack into the back-end system of the virtual world." Damn it, in the backstage? I was stunned for a moment, my heartbeat inexplicably accelerated. "Are you saying that you can close the advertisement in your brain?" "It's okay in theory." Xiaoya pointed her head and showed an excited expression on her face. "But we have to fix it first. Let's go back to my house for a try." I followed Xiaoya back to her old hut. The room was filled with parts and wires, like a small experiment room. She plugged the chip into a modified reader, and a bunch of malfunctions popped up on the screen. Her fingers quickly tapped on the virtual keyboard, muttering in her mouth, "This encryption method is so old. It should be a technology from a few decades ago. It can be done in 10 minutes. I stood beside me, my heart was both tight and anticipated. If the ad can really be turned off, I don't have to hear those ghost calls anymore. After 10 minutes of like a century, Xiaoya finally raised her head and grinned at me. "It's done. This chip can allow you to access the bottom layer of the virtual world in a short time, and you may be able to directly control some low-level systems." "Really?" My eyes lit up and I couldn't wait to pick up the chip she came to. Xiaoya helped me connect the chip to the implant interface on the back of my neck. The cold touch made me tremble. Then, a stinging pain suddenly came from my brain, as if someone poured ice water directly into my brain. "Lin Hao. Let's relax, the first connection will be a little unsuitable." Xiaoya's voice seemed to be coming from a very remote place, and my vision began to blur, and the next second, the whole world changed. I stood in an endless digital space surrounded by moving light and floating codes, as if I had entered a science fiction movie. I lowered my head and saw that my body had turned into a translucent stream of data. With a swipe of my palm, I could see strings of numbers sliding across my fingertips. Is this the bottom of the virtual world?" I murmured, and there was a shock in my heart that I couldn't say. At this moment, a harsh sound suddenly echoed, "Warning. Illegal visit was detected. Quit immediately, otherwise the cleaning process will be dispatched." I was stunned and looked up and saw a monster composed of red data streams appear in front of me. It looks like a deformed billboard, with the words "limited time price," and by now, the eyes are filled with red light, and the mouth is still mechanically sounded. "Illegal users are treated with ads to wash their brains, or are erased. Erase your big shot." I gritted my teeth, and a sudden burst of anger broke out in my brain. The frustration that I was tortured by advertising over the years exploded at this moment. I rushed up and punched the monster. Unexpectedly, my fist actually penetrated its body directly, bringing out a string of broken codes. "Error! Error! Data is snatched." The monster screamed, and his body began to disintegrate, turning into a pile of scattered light. I stood there, gasping heavily, looking at my fist, and feeling an unprecedented feeling of pleasure in my heart. "So, I can blow up this trash." I couldn't help but grin. That punch just now seemed to have smashed all the afflictions over the years, so much so that my skin felt numb. "Lin Hao. Be careful, more cleaning procedures have come." Xiaoya's voice suddenly sounded in my brain, as if she was talking to me directly through the chip. "You are not familiar with the practice now, so you quit tightly, otherwise you will be locked." I sucked my head, and although I still wanted to beat me up a few more, I also knew I couldn't force it. As soon as my mind moved, my vision blurred again. The next second, I had returned to Xiaoya's hut, and the interface behind my neck was still intimately excited. "How is that?" Xiaoya looked at me expectantly. I grinned and clenched my fists. "I just beat up an advertising monster. This chip is so awesome." Xiaoya's eyes lit up, and she was about to say something. Suddenly her face changed and she pointed to the screen behind me. Oh no, your data card has been captured. There are advanced programs that are following your location. I turned around and saw a virtual face on the screen, with a sea of ads in the background, and a low voice came from it. Little crazy, dare to destroy my system? I will let you know what real hope is. I felt nervous and guessed who this guy was. Zhang Badian, the advertising overlord. This name exploded in my brain like thunder. Unexpectedly, I just smashed a little monster and was shocked by this great god. Lin Hao, we have to run. Xiaoya hurriedly pulled out the connection line and her face turned blue. He will definitely send someone to catch you. I gritted my teeth and a fire broke out in my heart. Run? I'm not the kind of shrinking turtle. Since this chip can make me fight back, I have to see how hard this so-called advertising overlord is. The group in my heart was getting stronger and stronger. Zhang Baishan's voice was still resounding in his brain, carrying a high mockery, as if saying, "Little crazy, dare to challenge me? Crush you to death and play." I bit my teeth tightly, my fists clenched, and ran away. I'm not the kind of goods that will be low-headed. Lin Hao, don't be moved. Zhang Badian is not something we can fight head-on. His digital army can directly lock your nervous system and burn your brain into a group. Xiaoya was so anxious that she was sweating, and she was still holding the data line she had just pulled out, and her eyes were full of worry. I'm so crazy. Then I have to see if he has such skills first. I sneered, and suddenly flashed the screen of the advertising monster in the virtual world. That feeling of pleasure seemed to smash all the afflictions over the years. How could I be so jealous? No, you have to listen to me. Let's hide first, fix the chip, find a loophole before countering. Xiaoya grabbed my arm, speaking quickly. The people of Zhang Badian are already chasing your data. We can't fight with them in reality. I looked down at her. The worry in her eyes was not fake. I felt soft in my heart and pointed, "Okay, if you hear you, hide first. But I will tell you clearly that this matter is not over." I would have pulled that Zhang Badian off his throne and stomped a few feet. Xiaoya relaxed her voice, and hurriedly packed the tools on the table, stuffed them into a broken backpack, and muttered in her mouth, "Let's go to the hiding place I'm ready for. No one can find that place. Let's lower our scrutiny for a few days first." We hurriedly left the cottage. The neon lights in the alley outside were dazzling, and there was still the familiar stinking in the air. I lowered my head and followed Xiaoya quickly. The advertising sound in my brain was calm, but there was always a feeling of disagreement, as if there were two eyes staring at me in a dark place, making people's backs sway. Sure enough, before walking out of several streets, a few black shadows suddenly flashed at the entrance of the alley. Then, a harsh electronic voice came from all directions. The target was locked. The illegal user Lin Hao, surrender immediately, otherwise the erasure procedure will be carried out. I was surprised and looked up and saw several men wearing digital armors crossing the alley. Their faces were blank, with only two apes with light spots in their eyes, holding weapons like arc guns in their hands, and a bunch of ads with click to download and limited time discounts were hanging on their bodies, which made people's heads numb. Damn, Zhang Baishan's subordinates are coming so quickly. I lowered my voice and turned around and shouted at Xiaoya, "Run. Don't worry about me. Running the bad. Go together." Xiaoya gritted her teeth and took out the modified small welding gun from her backpack. It was a big deal for a digital soldier recently. A blue arc sprayed out from the gun, directly hitting the guy's chest, and a string of sparks burst out. The soldier's body shook, and the advertising tag floating on his body instantly stumbled, and then the whole body collapsed into a pile of data fragments. Awesome! I couldn't help but shout, but before I could get excited, another soldier next to me had already set up an arc gun, and it was just a blow to me. The blue light directly hit my brain. I subconsciously realized the side, and the arc brushed over my shoulders. My clothes were burned into a hole, and my skin was sore. Illegal user, accept brainwashing. The soldier made a mechanized sound, and a huge holographic advertising screen suddenly appeared on his body, and a sweet female voice popped up on the screen. "Lin Hao, join our best member plan, all the pain will disappear." The sound seemed to be directly diamonding into my brain, and with a dizzy moment, my eyes began to blur, and my mind seemed to be forced into a bunch of shopping carts and pay now buttons. I bit my teeth tightly and punched my thigh hard. The pain made me wake up a little, raise my brain. Lin Hao, hold on. They are using nerve interferers. Xiaoya's voice came from afar. She was forced back by 2 soldiers. The welding gun in her hand continued to fire, but the other party's digital armor became thicker and thicker, as if it was infinite refreshing in defense. I was panting, and suddenly a light flashed in my brain. The cracking chip behind my neck was still there. I could just punch the monster in the virtual world. Now, I might be able to do something. I closed my eyes and forced myself to concentrate, and my mind sank into that digital space again. As I went in, there were still flowing light and floating codes around me, but this time it was different. I could clearly see several red data streams gathering from a distance, like locking my signal. I moved my heart, stretched out my hand, tried to grab one of the data, and pulled it hard. Error. Error. External interference detection. A harsh sound came out. In fact, the soldier who shot nerve interference at me suddenly froze. The advertising screen on his body flashed for a few seconds, and the screen was directly black. Then the whole body seemed to have been formatted and turned into a pile of light and disappeared. It's done! I was happy, and my consciousness returned to reality. I looked up and saw that the 2 soldiers who were just forcing Xiaoya stopped acting, like a jam, standing there without moving. Lin Hao, what did you do? Xiaoya was confused and took advantage of the opportunity to use a welding gun to solve the remaining soldier. Just now I got into their bottom data flow, blocking their control signals. I grinned, and the feeling of pleasure in my heart came back, as if I gave Zhang Badian a slap in the face. Awesome! But we still have to run. These are just small bags, and there are more in the back. Xiaoya pulled me and continued to rush deep into the alley. We ran all the way and finally Diao entered a deserted sewer entrance. This was Xiaoya's hiding spot, full of rotten garbage and dripping pipes, but at least it was safe. I leaned against the wall, panting like a dog, and the advertising sound in my brain began to sing again, as if mocking my just resistance. Lin Hao, don't be angry. We just killed Zhang Baishan's small team. This is already a big victory. Xiaoya patted my shoulder, took out a broken tablet, and began to knock. I just caught a little of their data, saying that I might be able to crack something. I clicked my head and sat beside me watching her operate, still feeling angry in my heart. Although the response just now was pleasant, I also knew that this was just a hair that fell from Zhang Baishan's huge beast. The real battle is still at the back. After about half an hour, Xiaoya suddenly raised her head and her face became unusually serious. Lin Hao, I uncovered part of the content in the data film. Do you know why Zhang Badian is so anxious to catch you? Why? I was stunned, and I felt a bad feeling in my heart. Because this cracking chip can not only hack into low-level systems, it has a core vulnerability hidden inside it. It can directly access the control center of the virtual world. The reason why Zhang Badian can control everyone's neural system is that this control center pushes advertisements and brainwashing programs. If we can use this chip to penetrate, we may be able to directly slay his entire empire. Xiaoya's voice was shaking, as if she was both excited and scared. Damn, so fierce? My eyes lit up, but my eyebrows immediately raised again. Then why didn't he destroy this chip directly? Because this chip is the only key that can enter the main control center, he himself needs it to upgrade the system. But now the chip is in your hands, and he is afraid that you will find this secret, so he will be willing to catch you at all costs, and even send digital troops directly to the reality realm. Xiaoya pointed to the data chart on the tablet. Based on these scattered films, he has begun to prepare a new plan called Ultimate Brain Cleansing, which will completely deter all users' neural systems to his advertising network and become unconscious consumer puppets. What thing? Turning a person into a corpse in Walking Dead? I felt aroused and my fists clenched unconsciously. I have lived through these years of life and death by advertising. If Zhang Badian really succeeds, then everyone will really have no way to survive. Yes, so we can't sit and wait. Xiaoya bit her lip, her eyes calmed down. Lin Hao, the chip is on you, and you can directly connect to the bottom of the virtual world. The only chance now is to take the initiative to attack, penetrate into the main control center, and destroy his ultimate brainwashing plan. I was silent for a few seconds, and there seemed to be a fire burning in my heart. Actively hit? It's simple to say, but that's Zhang Beixian's nest, and he's gone in for a lifetime. But when I think of those who have been washed, and the screams in my brain that have not stopped in the past few years, I suddenly feel that this battle cannot be fought. Okay, I did it. But how to enter the main control center? I looked at Xiaoya, my eyes full of determination. According to data chips, the main control center is in the depth of the virtual world, and it must be reached through several encryption points. I will help you repair the chip and add an obscurity function so that you can dive in without being discovered. But Lin Hao, this time you enter, you may not be able to tell the difference between reality and virtuality, your consciousness will be deeply deterred, and you may even be trapped in it. Xiaoya's voice lowered, carrying a silk hesitation. Stuck in it? So what? I grinned and patted her on the shoulder. I'm almost gone. Am I afraid of this risk? Do it. Xiaoya looked at me, finally clicked the head and started burying the head to repair the chip. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes, and my brain was full of Zhang Beixian's virtual face. I silently swear in my heart, wait, I will lift your dog upside down this time. At this moment, a deep bird suddenly came from the sewer outlet away, like a large machine approaching. My eyes suddenly opened and my heart beat faster. Damn, Zhang Beixian's man is coming to the door so soon? The deep horn at the sewer entrance was getting closer and closer, as if some huge mechanical beast was approaching, and the air was filled with a sense of pressure. I felt nervous in my heart, and suddenly stood up, and said to Xiaoya in a low voice, damn, come so quickly. How did they find this? Xiaoya's face was not good-looking either. She quickly packed up the tools in her hand, and the light of the data that had just been cracked was flashed on the tablet screen. She gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, it must be the just battle that left data marks. Zhang Beixian's tracking program has changed even more than I thought. Lin Hao, the chip repair is not complete yet, we have to hide first. Hide? Where to hide? There is only one exit here. I glanced around. There was no other way to go except for dripping pipes and piles of garbage. The sound of the bird was so close that the ground began to vibrate slightly. I could even hear the electronic voice coming from outside. The target signal is confirmed. The illegal user Lin Hao is ready to be finally cleared. I will finally clear your big body. I gritted my teeth, my brain swiftly, and my eyes suddenly fell on the tablet in Xiaoya's hand. Xiaoya, you just said that the chip can hide my data, right? Can it be used now? Let's just dive into the virtual world and avoid the real pursuit. Xiaoya was stunned and immediately cried out, no, the chip has not been well tried. Now that you come in, your awareness will be deeply determined. You can't tell the difference between reality and virtuality, and you may never come out. Moreover, Zhang Beixian's power in the virtual world is stronger. We will go in and you will be self-invested. That's better than waiting to die like this. I growled, reached out and grabbed the chip in her hand. Her eyes must be like a block of iron. Xiaoya, stop talking, help me pick it up. They will be finished when they come, and now they can only fight. Xiaoya looked at me, her lips moved, and finally she still looked at her head. She quickly inserted the chip back to the interface behind my neck, tapped her finger on the tablet for a few times, and said in a low voice, I activated the occult function, but I can only last a short time. Lin Hao, don't come after going in. Let's go straight to the main control center, smash it if you find the loophole, and run away if you finish it. I understand. I took a deep breath. The moment the interface was connected, the familiar stinging sensation came again, and my brain seemed to be filled with ice water, and my vision was quickly blurred. The next second, I was standing in that endless digital space, surrounded by moving light and floating codes, as if I had entered a chaotic ocean. Lin Hao, can you hear me? Xiaoya's voice came from deep thought, with a little echo. I am now synchronizing with you through the chip, and the pursuers in it have reached the sewer entrance, so we have to hurry. Received. I sniffed softly, looked up and saw a huge black shadow in the digital space far ahead, like a fortress made of countless advertising tags. The glaring words limited time discount and buy now. There was also a mechanical brainwashing sound in the air. Join us, consumption is happiness. Is this the main control center? I was shocked, and I felt a strong sense of pressure coming towards me, as if there were two invisible eyes looking at me, making my skin numb. Yes, this is Zhang Baishan's nest, and the core data is all inside. Xiaoya's voice rushed. Lin Hao, the hidden function has been activated. Now I'm impulsive, don't be discovered by those guardian programs. I gritted my teeth and moved my mind, and my body turned into a stream of data, quickly heading towards the advertising castle. The digital space for 4 weeks began to twist, as if it had entered a certain high-encrypted area, and red warning lines were passed in the air, and the airs were filled with warnings of illegal intrusion and exit immediately. Damn, these warnings are so terrible. I whispered, and forced the inappropriate pressure in my heart, and rushed forward without reducing the speed. At this moment, several huge monsters suddenly appeared around the fortress, which looked like giant beasts made of countless billboards. They were flashing discount marks on their bodies, and a harsh electronic sound came out of their mouths. Illegal users are treated with brainwashing, or are erased. Erase your ancestors. I roared angrily, and the fire in my brain exploded instantly. I was so frustrated that I was forced into ads over the years. I suddenly rushed to a monster, raised my hand and punched it, and the fist directly penetrated its body, bringing out a string of broken codes. Error. The data is snatched, the monster screamed, and his body began to disintegrate, turning into a pile of scattered light. I gasped and looked at my fist. The feeling of pleasure in my heart was about to break through the sky, as if I had smashed all my grievances. Lin Hao, don't fight, there are more guards coming. Xiaoya's voice was so anxious that it almost broke. I looked up and saw that there were more than 10 monsters emerging from the surrounding area of the fortress, with the light of augur on their bodies surrounding me. I'll smash as much as I come. I gritted my teeth and rushed towards the second monster. I grabbed a billboard sign on it with both hands and tore it hard. The whole monster was directly pulled into 2.5, and the data fragments were flying everywhere, and my ears were full of screams of system error. Cool. It's so good to have a mother. Every punch was like a harsh attack on Zhang Baishan's face, so straightforward that his skin was numb. But before I could have had a few more seconds of fun, a harsh warning suddenly came from my body, and a huge holographic face appeared above the fortress, which was Zhang Baishan's virtual image. His face was full of mockery, and his voice was as low as if it was transmitted from the ground. Little crazy, dare to hit my ground plate? Let you know what real hope is today. As the voice fell, the surrounding monsters suddenly felt like they had chicken blood, and their speed increased sharply. There was a thick layer of digital armor on their body. When my fist hit me, it only left a crack, which could not be smashed through at all. Damn it, I'll open it, right? I lowered my voice and avoided the attack of a monster, but the arc whip of another monster had already sucked it and directly hit my data incarnation. A pain came in an instant, as if someone was taking an electric dial into my brain. My eyes went dark and I almost didn't break directly. Lin Hao, your consciousness is snatched. Zhang Badian is adjusting the core authority limit to you, retreat quickly. Xiaoya's voice was so anxious that she almost cried, but I gritted my teeth and held it back and stared at the core area of the fortress. Retreat? I finally got to this point, I'm just going to get out of here. I gasped, and a wave of dissatisfaction suddenly burst out from my consciousness. The days that were forced by advertising have flashed through my brain one after another, and the fire in my heart became even more intense. Xiaoya, help me to maximize the power of the chip. I'm going to blow up this garbage. No, your consciousness will collapse when the power is maximized, and may even affect the real body. Xiaoya hurriedly opposed, but my temperament is unquestionable. Stop talking, open. Or die now, or try it. Xiaoya was silent for a second, and finally gritted her teeth and said, okay, the power is all turned on. Lin Hao, hold it. The next second, the interface behind my neck seemed to be burned by fire, and a powerful energy directly penetrated my consciousness. My entire digitalized body suddenly burst out with a dazzling light, as if it had evolved in an instant, and its power was bursting. I roared and rushed towards the nearest monster, and smashed the head of the fist. The thick digital armor was smashed to pieces. The monster screamed and instantly disintegrated into pieces. Come on, who else? I read my eyes, as if I was a demon, and rushed towards the second and third monsters. Every punch was filled with the air of thunder, and the data fragments were dancing in the sky, and my ears were full of system collapse. Cool. I haven't had this pleasure ever. I felt like an invincible war god, and those monsters were a pile of paper rubbish in front of me. But this kind of explosion is not unpriced. With every punch, my consciousness becomes blurred, my vision begins to twist, and the digital space around seemed to collapse, and Xiaoya's voice in her ears also stopped. Lin Hao, the consciousness is exhausted, it is almost at the limit, exit. Quit out. I'm not at the core yet. I gritted my teeth and forced the last slit to wake up, rushing towards the deepest part of the fortress. There was a huge ball of light that radiated dazzling light, like the core of the entire virtual world, and the last few elite guards were surrounded by the guards of the last. Illegal users, stop resisting. The few guards' voices were as cold as machines, and they were full of advertising tags such as Supreme Member and Extreme Consumption, and their energy was more than 10 times stronger than the previous monsters. I felt nervous and knew that this was the last tough battle, and I could do it with all my strength. I roared angrily, rushed up and followed the first guardian hard, and the fist smashed hard on its core, but this guy's counterattack was faster, and an arc directly penetrated my data into an incarnation. The pain instantly made my eyes dark, and my mind seemed to be torn apart. I bit my teeth tightly, but I didn't fall down. I grabbed it with my backhand and pinched it hard, and Showa made a scream and turned into pieces. There are 2 left. I can do it. I gasped, my mind was already blurred to the point, but the unwilling agitation in my heart was still suffocating. But at this moment, Zhang Baishan's virtual face appeared in the sky again, and his voice was filled with endless mockery. Little crazy, he is very powerful, but unfortunately, the game ends here. As the voice fell, the digital space around the fortress suddenly began to shrink, as if it was about to crush me. I felt that my mind was stuck in countless irons, and the pain was almost broken, and Xiaoya's voice became weaker and weaker. Lin Hao, quit, and never leave, will really. I gritted my teeth and stared at the data ball of light. It was only a few steps away from me. As long as I smashed it, Zhang Baishan's ultimate brainwashing plan would have to be soaked. But my body has reached its limit, and my consciousness may collapse at any time. In fact, the pursuers in it may have broken into the door, in Xiaoya, and I have no way out. Fight! I growled, and used the last force to thrust towards the ball of light, and my fist was raised high, but at this moment, a red arc of agony fell from the sky and thrust my brain. Zhang Baishan's smile filled the entire space. Go to die, little trash. The ape-red arc hit my brain, as if it could directly split my mind into pieces. Zhang Baishan's smile resounded in the digital space, as harsh as a knife scraping glass. My eyes went dark, and my body seemed to be tightly clamped by countless irons. It was so painful that it was almost collapsed. My mind was blurred to the limit, and even Xiaoya's voice could not be heard. Go to die, little trash. Zhang Baishan's voice was filled with endless mockery, as if he had already determined my end. But at this moment, my brain suddenly flashed over the numb faces in the slums, flashed over the neighborhood that was forced to jump off the building by ads, and flashed over the ghost cry that had never stopped in my brain these years. The fire in my heart seemed to be burned even more vigorously. You're so bad. I gritted my teeth and forced my back from the edge of my mind. I roared and flashed my body with the last burst of force. The red arc of the ape wiped my data into my body, bringing out a string of broken light. The drama made my eyes dark, but I stared at the data ball of light. It was only one step away from me. As long as I smashed it, Zhang Baishan's ultimate brainwashing plan would be over. You still want to slap? Break him. Zhang Baishan's voice became even more rude, and the digital space around him was shrinking faster, like an invisible giant hand was about to crush me into pieces. The remaining 2 elite guards also came over, and the supreme member on their bodies was dazzlingly flashed. The arc whip in their hands blew towards me hard, and the air was full of warning sounds of system erasing. I gasped, and my mind was like a thin line that was pulled to the limit, which would break at any time, but I only had one thought in my heart: I couldn't fall. It was really over when it fell down. Not only me, but also Xiaoya, but also those who were enslaved by advertisements in the slums. My life is not worth the money, but this punch must be smashed. Lin Hao, quit, can't do it. Xiaoya's voice continued to spread, like the last shout, but I clenched my teeth and roared, close your mouth. I'll blow this garbage. As the voice fell, I rushed towards one of the guards, and smashed the fist hard at its core. At the same time, the other hand grabbed its arc whip, allowing the drama to get into the mind, and pulled it in front of me as a flesh shield. The second defending attack directly hit its companion, and the 2 monsters simultaneously burst out a string of data fragments, turning into light and scattering. It's done! I was happy, but my mind was so blurred that I could hardly see the way forward. I stumbled towards the ball of light. Zhang Baishan's virtual face twisted in the air and roared angrily, "Little crazy, you dare! Stop me! Stop your ancestor!" I grinned, lifted my fist, and suddenly a force of unprecedented power surged in my brain, like all the grievance, anger, and hope that all these years had exploded at this moment. My data incarnation burst out with a dazzling golden light, as if it had evolved to the extreme. The entire digital space began to shake, and Zhang Baishan's face was distorted. This is impossible. He finally panicked in his voice, but I was no longer concerned about it, and my fist was carrying the thunderous air and smashed it hard towards the ball of light. Room! There was a huge sound, as if the entire virtual world was shattered by this punch. The light ball exploded instantly, and countless streams sprayed out like a flood. The surrounding advertising castle storm began to collapse, and countless limited-time discounts and by now were turned into pieces, dancing in the sky. Zhang Baishan's virtual face screamed unwillingly, "No, my empire! Imperial fart! Stop me!" I gasped and growled, and the last bit of force burst out in my mind, and I punched him in the ear. The face of the sprite was directly distorted, and then it seemed to be formatted, turning into a pile of malfunctions, disappearing into the digital space. It's done, and finally, killed. I murmured, my mind relaxed, my eyes darkened, and my whole person seemed to be trapped in the darkness. I don't know how long it took, but Xiaoya's voice came to my ears, "Lin Hao. Wake up. Don't scare me. Don't die." I suddenly opened my eyes and found that I had returned to reality. I was lying in the deserted sewer, and the interface behind my neck was still hilariously hot, and my body was covered in cold sweat. Xiaoya looked at me anxiously, her eyes were red, and she was still holding the cracked chip in her hand. The flat screen next to her was full of codes, as if she had just experienced a data storm. Damn, am I still alive? I opened my mouth in a sand, feeling my brain as if it had been squeezed dry, but there was a sense of ease in my heart that I couldn't say. The unfinished advertising sounds in the brain finally became quiet, as if they were completely erased by something. Of course you are alive. Just now you smashed the control center of the entire virtual world. Zhang Baishan's ultimate brainwashing plan collapsed, and all the advertising systems stopped. Xiaoya's voice was trembling, as if she hadn't come from the shock yet. "Lin Hao, do you know? Now the world outside is blowing up, everyone has found that the ad has disappeared, and everyone is looking for who did it. Hey, just do it well, no matter whether they can find it or not." I grinned and reluctantly sat up. The picture of the punch in my brain suddenly flashed through the face of the moment, and the pleasure was so simple, as if I had smashed all the afflictions over the years. But before I could have had a few more seconds of pleasure, a sudden rush of footsteps came from the sewer entrance, and then a group of figures rushed in from outside. I felt nervous in my heart, thinking it was Zhang Baishan's remaining strength, but when I looked closely, these people were wearing torn clothes, with expressions of excitement and gratitude on their faces. One of the old men even rushed to me directly, trembling with words, "Little brother, are you doing it right? The advertisement in my brain is gone. We are free." I was stunned, then laughed and said, "Yes, it was me. How come I feel good? It's so good. It's so good." The old man's eyes were filled with slightness, and the people beside him shouted, with the sound suppressing the liberation that had been suppressed for many years, "You are our savior. We will no longer have to be swearing by those ghosts." Xiaoya looked around, her eyes lit up, and she said to me in a low voice, "Lin Hao, do you know? Just now, I connected to an external network and found that the entire Neon City advertising system was collapsed. The users in the virtual world were discussing this matter, saying that a digital god appeared, shattering Zhang Baishan's rule. They are all looking for you. The god of numbers? This number is good, it's quite domineering." I smiled and stood up. Although my body was still very dull, I felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction in my heart. After these years of pressure, I finally put a chapter on the book today. Not only did I kill Zhang Badian, but I also brought freedom to everyone. This feeling is so cool than anything else. Let's go out and have a look. I patted Xiaoya on the shoulder and took her out of the sewer with those people. The neon city outside is still as broken. Under the gray sky, the high-pitched billboards have black screens. Without those dazzling time-limited prices, and by now, the whole city seems to have suddenly become quiet, and the air is more relaxed. The more people on the streets gathered, the residents of the slums, the users of the virtual world, and even some people from the advanced areas all looked at me, with shock, gratitude, and awe in their eyes. Someone whispered, "It's him. It's the god of digital." It smashed the advertiser's brain with one punch. I stood among the crowd, listening to these comments, and I felt no pride in my heart, but there was a kind of indescribable stubbornness. Over the years, I have gone from being a terrible boy who was forced into an advertisement to becoming a hero in everyone's eyes. Although I have been going through a lifetime of death, it is worth it. Lin Hao, what are you going to do next? Xiaoya stood beside me and asked in a low voice, her eyes full of smiles. What should I do? Find a place to have a good sleep, and then. I grinned and looked up at the sky, and then transform this virtual world into a place that truly belongs to everyone, and no one can enslave who with advertisements. Good idea. I knew you wouldn't be so idle. Xiaoya smiled and patted my shoulder, then I have to follow you. After all, the transformation of the world is a technical genius, I am indispensable. It must be. I laughed, turned to the crowd behind me, and shouted loudly, "Speak. From today on, the virtual world belongs to us. There is no advertising overlord, no brainwashing procedures, only freedom. Who dares to force us again, I will smash him with one punch." The crowd burst into a burst of shouts in an instant, and the sound was as if it had roared out all the pressures over the years. I stood in this movie and looked at the face full of hope around me, and a warm feeling suddenly burst into my heart. It turns out that the real pleasure is not the punch that blows Zhang Badian, but seeing these people finally lift their heads and pass the days when they are not manipulated. Lin Hao. God of numbers. Someone started calling my name, and then more and more people joined, and the sounds were translated into a torrent, reverberating over the neon city. I grinned, snatched my hands at them, and thought silently in my heart, I have accepted this number. From now on, I will protect this virtual world. The sun shines through the gray cloud layer, and on the broken streets, it seems to have brought long-lasting hope to the city. I took a deep breath and turned forward. Xiaoya followed me, with the gaze of worship behind me. The road ahead is still very long, but no matter what challenges there are, I will not retreat. Because I am Lin Hao, the god of numbers, a man who smashes the advertising overlord and regains freedom in the whole world. At this point, the story is over. I know that from today on, Neon City will no longer be the ground covered by advertising, but a new world full of possibilities. And I will always stand on this land, guarding everyone's freedom. Whoever dares to infringe, I will accompany you with one punch.